Hi, and welcome to the training module on the AVPro Edge AC EX70 444 kit. This is an 18 gigabit per second HDMI extender that uses HD-based heat technology. By using our proprietary ICT or invisible compression technology, we can deliver a virtually lossless high bandwidth 4K HDR signal with support for all signals up to 18 gigabits per second. Deep color and HDR metadata remain intact while making the image free of artifacts like banding. There are 3 different models in the 444 extender series. Each step up in the series not only supports longer distances, but also upgraded features. In this video, we're going to primarily focus on the AC EX70 444 kit. This extender kit also supports other features such as EDID management, scaling, test pattern generator built in for troubleshooting. We can extend IR signals, we can extend RS-232 signals, audio extraction, and we have added support for Ethernet. So you can hardwire other components in the system to the network. Let's take a look at the installation. Thanks for checking out this training module on the AVPro Edge AC EX70 444 HDMI extender kit. By now, you should have already watched the video on the AC EX40 444 HDMI extender kit. One thing that you'll notice between the two kits is there's not much of a difference when it comes to installation and setup. If you haven't already watched the video on the AC EX40 444 kit, I would stop this video and go ahead and watch that one first. One of the biggest advantages of the EX70 444 kit is that it can extend HDMI signals further than the EX40 444 kit. The EX70 can extend 4K 60 HDR content up to 70 meters or 1080p content up to 100 meters. Everything that we covered in the EX40 444 kit video applies to the EX70 444 kit as well. Installation, setting EDID, copying EDID, the video downscaler, IR and RS-232 routing, and audio extraction all work in the same exact way. In this video, we're going to concentrate on what is different when comparing the EX40 444 kit to this EX70 444 kit. One of the biggest differences you'll probably recognize right away is that on the EX70 444 kit, there are 4 Ethernet ports, not to be confused with the HD-based T port. These are 4 separate Ethernet ports. So on the transmitter, we have Ethernet 1 and Ethernet 2. And on the receiver, we also have Ethernet 1 and Ethernet 2. Now, these can become very helpful if you have AV devices or even any other devices in the system that you need to get hardwired to the customer's network. And this is pretty easy to do. It's basically plug and play. So basically what you're going to do, any of these 4 Ethernet ports, you'll want to hardwire any of these 4 to an access point or a router or a hub or any way you can get onto the network. When you hardwire one of the 4 connections, the other 3 become live. So for example, on the transmitter, if I had Ethernet 1 plugged into a router or an access point, Ethernet 2 on the transmitter and Ethernet 1 and 2 on the receiver are now live. So if I, for example, had a smart TV, I could plug into Ethernet 1 or 2. Maybe if there's a local video game console, I could plug into Ethernet 1 or 2. On the transmitter side, I could also use the second Ethernet port for maybe a Blu-ray player or a source that needs to be hardwired to the network. Very easy to do, basically plug and play, but this is one of the biggest advantages of the EX70 kit over the EX40 kit. Another difference that we'll take a look at is something called long range mode. In long range mode on the AC EX70 444, you can take 1080p 8-bit signals all the way up to 150 meters if needed. To enable long range mode, we first have to go into the test pattern mode. So just like on the EX40, we're going to unplug the power from the transmitter. We're going to press and hold the setting button. While we're holding the setting button, we're going to plug the transmitter back in for power. And we're going to wait for the test pattern to show up on the screen. Okay, now we're in test pattern mode, so now we can enable long range mode. To enable long range mode, take the setting button, press and hold it for 4 seconds, and you should see the setting button blink twice. Long range mode is now enabled. Last thing you have to do, unplug power from the transmitter, wait a couple of seconds, plug it back in. We'll go ahead and let everything resync. And now we're in long range mode. And again, that'll let you take 8-bit, 1080p 8-bit signals up to 150 meters if needed. Next, we'll take a look at the status lights on the AC EX70 444 kit, starting with the transmitter. The first light that you'll see is the red power light, and that should always be solid red. The next light that you see says AV system activity. That light should be blinking like you see now. And that just means that there's activity and data transmitting through the system. There's also an HD-based-T link light, which should always be solid blue. And that just means that there is a solid HD-based-T connection between the transmitter and the receiver. There's also an HDMI signal status light that should always be solid blue. That means that there's a solid HDMI link between the transmitter and the source. Next is the setting button. Right now it's solid blue. That button will change and blink based on different settings that you're adjusting, like EDID, test pattern generator, things like that. On the back, on HD-based-T, there's two lights. There's an orange light that should always be flashing orange. That means that there's power making its way from transmitter to receiver. And then there's a solid green light that should always be solid green. And that means that there's a solid HD-based-T link between the transmitter and receiver. Very similar on the receiver. Power light is solid red. AV system activity light blinks blue. HD-based-T link light means that there's a solid HD-based-T connection between the transmitter and receiver. HDMI status light, that should always be solid blue. That means you have a solid connection between the receiver and the display. The setting light, that's solid blue right now, but again, if you're doing different things with the receiver, like setting out test patterns, that will do different things. And on the back, just like on the transmitter, you have a flashing orange light on the HD-based-T link. That means that there's power making its way from the transmitter to receiver. And a solid green light, meaning that there's a solid link with HD-based-T between the transmitter and receiver. That'll do it for today's video on the EX70 444 HDMI extender kit from AVPro Edge. As you guys can see, the similarities between this and the AVPro Edge EX40 444 kit are very, very similar. In this video, we covered the differences and what some of the advantages were when going with the EX70 over the EX40. Hope you found this video informative. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you on the next one.